nearly the end of February, and time for another look at the month ahead, the month of March, the month of Pisces, which starts this week. And as usual, we're going to have a quick look at what's happening in the country this month and generally speaking to get a better sense of what's going on than the little we got from the State of the Nation address last week. And, and the little we got from the State of the Nation address is addressed in the little we get from the President's own astrological chart. It's one thing to be able to look at a chart and see stuff that will happen. Of course, human beings still have agency, and we still have will, and we still have to react to stuff that's going on. And experience has shown us that the President is not one to really do that. But at any rate, from looking at his chart, what might become action in other people is not really action in him. And I'm thinking it's because of all that Scorpio that I've told you about in the past, that sometimes Scorpios are so afraid to change the status quo that they become paralyzed into inaction. And in worst case scenario, they control things from behind the scenes and try and damage what's really already going on. I don't think we have to worry about that with this president, but certainly the fixity, Scorpio is called a fixed sign, everything stays in place. And it would appear that the fixity has gotten the better of Mr. Ramaphosa, and we have the classic kind of Scorpio who becomes paralyzed by inaction through insecurity. We all know that that insecurity is about his party and about his own position in that party and all of that, and it's extended to the point of total inaction. Until next year. Hopefully stuff will happen this year, but from looking at South Africa's chart and Ramaphosa's chart, it doesn't look like very much new action is going to be happening this year. It doesn't look like there's still any consequences of state capture, doesn't look like anyone's going to prison, doesn't look like anything is majorly changing on the political scene. And of course, unsurprisingly, it's mostly the financial scene that we have to be concerned about. With regards to next year, and of course I'll be talking much more about that in my year ahead forecasts for next year, much later this year and at the beginning of next year, it does look like the crunch arrives for Cyril Ramaphosa in about a year's time. Currently he is in an extremely dangerous situation, and it's almost possible that he can lose the presidency. Maybe another person would lose the presidency under these circumstances, but part of his fixed Scorpioness is he's preserving his own position, so nothing much changes, which is pretty much exactly as he's intending. But it does look like by next year there is a crunch, and it looks like next year is also a very dangerous year to his presidency, just like the early stages of this year. Early stages of next year look more scary and could even see him lose the presidency. Not very likely at this point, but more about that next year. What is interesting is Andre de Ruyter. Now, I asked you if anyone could find the birth date of Andre de Ruyter, the new head of Eskom, for me. And thank you, Kim. I really appreciate it. You sent me some details that have been really helpful. We could always do with someone's birth time, and if anyone's got that magic number, send that to me too. But the birth date does give us enough information to see, firstly, the troubled end of the last part of his career at SAPI, and how uncomfortable perhaps some people were with how he left his previous positions. But the fact remains, in some ways, he is the beast that we need, the dog who's willing to go in there no matter what the danger is or anything like that, that says he's got the courage and the couldn't care less as in terms of what reaction or feedback he gets. That's probably going to be necessary at Eskom because of all the extreme reactions everyone there gets from the world around them, and everyone with their own agendas. The unions and the ANC and the state capturers and all of those people with their own needs and requirements for Eskom. The one thing de Ruyter has is the stubborn, couldn't really care, he's going to persist with his plan. that we can look forward to. Of course, again, like the president, doesn't really need me to tell him that he is in extremely dangerous position, and there are enemies working against him, just like there are against the president, that are really dangerous enemies. But as I say, he seems to have this relentless, couldn't really care about the flack that he gets, and he will persist. He's happy to be an unpopular enemy. And that might be the right thing that's required at Eskom. He is a Pisces. And Pisces, the one problem with them is that they can be too accommodating. But for the most part, though, De Ruyter has got the kind of scary courage that it takes and couldn't care less. He's on his mission. Whether he's able to save Eskom is an altogether different story. Personally, given the circumstances, if I were to choose someone to run a company, I would choose De Ruyter only because he's got that ability to persist despite whatever else might be going on. Still, I'm not entirely convinced that that's going to solve the problem. There are some difficult things in his chart that are going to make this year very, very difficult for him, and next year. All the previous heads of Eskom learned that the hard way, as if they didn't know going in, and didn't survive. De Ruyter looks to survive longer, and if he survives through about the next 18 months, then he's probably going to stay. So let's see if he's able to really push his unpopular agenda over that time. But looks like he might be able to do that. The big news that everyone does worry about is financial matters and what's going to happen on the front with Moody's downgrade and so on. Well, again, as we've been saying for months and months and months, it looks like it is coming in March. Perhaps if it's the later part of March, we'll see it again in next month's look at the charts ahead. But already in this month, we can already see the forces piling up in the Treasury. There are a whole run, it's like 6 troubling forces, planets, in the house of the Treasury, and it looks like that's going to have a strong effect. The downgrade will happen, the rand will devalue, and in many ways, of course, our economy will devalue, having been declared junk status by the end of the month. So financially, things look extremely challenging in the month ahead. We're going to see prices rise, and we're going to see, literally the chart says, the value of things becomes detrimented. The value of our money becomes detrimented. The value of our economy becomes detrimented. That detrimented is an astrological word, and it means at its most negative in some ways. So financially, things aren't looking good. What the chart does say about that is that it's time to completely restructure what we want. We would need a different economic plan and pretty much a different way that the Treasury is being run in order for this to work. Mboweni might have to raise taxes and do all of those things, but that is a process that's never going to solve the problem. Other solutions are needed. Idealism, the ideals, are lost in this chart. There's a tremendous challenge in the house of ideals. So that means we've got no future plan. It's really a situation of they're desperately trying to get themselves out of a hole, but there isn't a plan for the future. Well, I've also been saying since last year that 2020 and 21 are going to continue to be challenging years. We're in it. We've just got to hang in there and go with it, but it starts becoming a challenge and necessary for all of us to start taking care of our finances, watching how we use money more carefully, and where we can, redefining the value of things for ourselves. If I had to say, for the individual, what is the solution to deal with the economic and financial crisis that South Africans are spiraling into, is to take this opportunity to reassess what do you really value, not only the things that are financial, but including those. What are your values? How do your financial choices match your values? How does what you spend match your values? And if you as an individual can get back down to the core idea of your values and manage your money that way, individually, that's how we're going to solve the problem. And if 50 million South Africans did that, maybe we'd solve the bigger problem. Time to stop leaving things to the politicians and taking things back into our own hands. Well, Aries, it looks like the financial recovery and getting on top of it process that started last month continues, although it is going through an up and down phase. There might be periods at the beginning of this period that I'm talking about, say the next week while we're still in February, where you're still struggling and there's some up and down. But the good news is that as the month progresses, you will be able to increasingly get on top of financial matters. There's good money coming in, but there could be a lot of surprises along the way. So it's a question of being careful how you're spending the money and having a certain amount of take care of, prepare for a certain amount of unexpected expenses or bigger expenses. It's an up and down process, but pushing through the month will get you to the end of the month in a much stronger position. Like everyone else, time to think about values, but you need to think about personal values. Are the people in your life really the people that you should be spending your energy on? Correct your spending of your energy, and you might find that your financial life improves along the way. Maybe some of the money's been going where it shouldn't. Taurus, it looks like you've been a little bit complacent, and now it might be starting to exact its price. The charts show that you need to be a little bit more wary and perhaps even slightly suspicious of some of the people around you. It really just means that people are operating behind your back, or there are things that are going on that you're not entirely aware of, and you need to make yourself more aware. In fact, quite frankly, from the chart's point of view, it's time for a shake-up in the people around you. If they're your employees, if they're your family, or those people that are in your social space, it's time to really put your foot down, make it clear that you're not going to tolerate anything that doesn't serve all of us or your major goals that you're working on, and that doesn't serve the family or whatever it is in the social scene. Most importantly, though, you also have to adjust some of the relationships with the people around you. Maybe it's time to let one or two go. I'm not talking about your personal life there. It's very unlikely that we're talking about that, but it really just means make sure that people that you can trust and who support what you believe in are in your space. Geminis need a bit of a change of strategies right now. Your way that you've been working on your problems or whatever's been predominating is not working. It's outworn, or it's running into dead ends. You're a great thinker, you've got a good mind, you're probably very good at problem solving. It doesn't mean that the same approach is always going to work, and that's probably what's going on here. Your usual approach is just not happening. You have to completely revise that. It may be a good idea to get some input from other people and speak to people who've got a completely different approach. If you're dealing with a logical problem, speak to a creative person, or if it's the other way around, speak to someone who you wouldn't normally think of as creative to help solve your creative problems. But you really need more than out of the box thinking. You need a completely alternative approach. That's also going to be necessary because it's a great month to put yourself forward, but let people see something about you that they don't normally associate with you. It's your time to show that you're versatile, that you're capable of things beyond the usual verbal or mathematical, numerical things, and show that you also have your own creativity to show. Cancerians, you've been carrying a lot of emotional stuff lately. And in times like this, it can actually eventually feel a little bit too much. You might feel that it will break you, or that there's no way out of the situation that you're in now that is making you feel a little bit of despair or melancholy or loss of hope. Don't go there. Of course, you belong to the moon, and the moon is that cyclical planet and will be shining good vibes and positive emotions on you very soon. You've got to persist with this idea or this new ideal that you've been working on. There's a strategy now that doesn't look great, that not everyone agrees with, but this is the one for now that's going to take you through, and so you've got to persist on that. You know, the usual things: play, children, animals, home, food. These are the things that make a Cancerian feel like a person, and you've got to make sure that you're using that for that to work for you. You also have a creative streak, so using your creativity, producing something new, something that you love, concentrating on something that you love, that's what's going to make a very big difference to those feelings of melancholy. You love children, be a child yourself, play. Leo, you actually are noted for your leadership abilities, and you might not put yourself in that position of thinking yourself as a leader, especially since You love doing things on your own and running your own show so much. But you know, one of the archetypal ideas of Leo is that you're also very good at getting everyone to pursue a common goal. That's the kind of leadership that I'm referring to here. So in your work environment or in your home environment, it's time to kind of get everyone together and get them onto the same page, because you're going to be able to do that this month, and that's going to work for you this month. At a more ordinary, prosaic level, this might be the time to employ, find, and get all the people you need in order for your project to come through. But this is the time it comes through. It's going to become a month of hard work, but very rewarding work for you. You can make a lot of breakthroughs in putting one of your bigger ideas into place. But challenge is, as you can hear, it's not going to happen alone. So just because you love doing things alone doesn't mean this is one of them. And hey, you like people enjoying what you do. Give them something that they're going to feel rewarded by doing. The best reward is achieving the common goal, and you can make that happen. Virgos, although you're very often very aware of and focused on everything that's happening with the people around you and what's going on in your relationships, because after all, you think too much and you analyze too much. As far as you're concerned, you're super aware of what's going on in your relationships, but believe it or not, either you or them are pulling the wool over your eyes. I mean, one can pull the wool over one's own eyes. You're fooling yourself, or you're making unnecessary sacrifices, or in some way just putting yourself second. It's great that it's true that a relationship is very important right now, and that your relationships are important. It doesn't in any way affect that, but it doesn't mean that you have to give yourself over completely or make some unnecessary sacrifices. There is a different approach required in your relationship right now, but part of that approach means having better boundaries so that you're not the one who's running the show or feeling that you're supposed to, and as ever, to stop being so self-critical, because that's what's getting you into the situation of believing that you're the one who's doing something wrong, so you better go along with it. No, draw a better boundary, put your foot down and say, this is how it's going to be. The more I look at it, the more it seems to me the lesson of the month of Pisces is all about creating better boundaries and being quite firm about things, because it's coming up for a lot of signs, and Libra, you are no exception. It's time to draw that line. It's not that you're being taken advantage of or exploited without your knowledge. It's very likely it is with your knowledge, but it's time to bring things back home. Stop being so generous. Stop being the one who's yielding all the time. It's time for things to come back to you. And so this is also a good month to be thinking about, apart from that, what extra is available to me? Who do I know? What's available? And what can I draw back into my resources? It's time to collect the money that's owed to you and rebuild your financial strength. It's not as bad as it seems. It's just that you haven't been paying enough attention and you've allowed things to go. There's so much more available to you from other people right now. You just need to be a little bit more selfish and a little bit more hardline, and you'll probably end the month feeling both financially stronger and probably in a stronger position with other people as well who are going to admire this approach. Scorpios, time to show the president that not all Scorpios are the same. You don't have to be paralyzed just because you don't want the status quo to change. Either change the status quo yourself or enjoy the fruits of that change, because Scorpio, this is really a great month to get yourself going. It's a great month to shake things up and make some changes, but in order for that to happen, you're going to have to initially take a loss or take a setback. It's probably the bit that the president's resisting. And so it's like pay a little, give up a little in order for an important goal to come through. This is a good time to be looking at your own bigger picture, your own ideals, to identify who really supports you with this and who doesn't, and seriously to purge those who don't support your direction at this time. It is a challenging time for Scorpios, because in order to move forward right now, you have to rock your own boat. But I will tell you, Scorpios, this is the best possible time to be rocking your own boat. While something may fall into the water, you're really going to arrive at a shore that has been impossible to reach in the past. Go for it, Scorpios. As for Sagittarians, there's just no holding you back right now, although I must begin to wonder a little bit what's really going to come of it. Is it really worth your while? It looks like you're putting a lot of energy into things. You're spending a lot of energy this month, and for the most part, you will get results, but you're also going to drain yourself enormously, and the results might not be long lasting. So you need to re-strategize things, Sagittarians, so that you're working with shorter term goals, and then with the longer term goals, you've really got to question whether the approach you're taking right now is what's going to get you there. Because it looks a little bit like you're looking for an immediate gratification, quite a Sagittarian problem, and that the focus is more on the people and the experience than it is on the result. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That might be a way to change the strategy. So I could also say to you, this is a time to reorient your goals so that you satisfy your social needs and your friendship needs, because some great friendships are being forged at the moment. There are probably a lot of old friends in your environment right now, and that is a worthy goal because people give you a great kick. Just be aware that your bigger goals are not going to be easily achieved, even if you get everyone to help you. So keep focused on that. There are smaller goals, that it's great that these people are here, and I can get on with what's important a little bit further down the line. Capricorns, this is one of those times that comes around once or twice a year for every Capricorn, where you just have to knuckle down and deal with it all once and for all. Capricorns are not afraid of hard work, they're not afraid of dealing with the dirt, and this is one of those months where you've got to put your money where your mouth is and just clear it up once and for all, because hard work needs to be done. In fact, the hard work that you're doing this month can be the foundation of later achievements which might come still a year or two down the line. That's not usually a problem for Capricorns, even though there's a little part of you that always wants results now. You're able to hang in there. You'll find that some of those ideals need to be completely restructured, and some of what you wanted is not attainable. So you have to actually re-strategize a lot of things. Also looks like for this year you're going to have to give up some things in order to make some progress. Not an unusual theme this year either, but it does mean you're going to have to accept some limitations or even a little bit of hardship in order for the bigger picture to work. Again, Capricorns are usually okay with that. So Capricorns, if you focus on long-term goals and ideals now, you're going to end up going a million miles. It's just going to take a while. Aquarians, actually, it's time to take a bit of a break. Now that your birthday month is gone and many things have actually sorted themselves out for the better for you, a great strategy right now is to take a break, take a holiday, or take a retreat of some kind. In fact, a retreat at home is one of the best things you could do for yourself right now, Aquarians, because it does look like the work done on inner work, on private stuff, that's when we get that space by being alone, when we're able to address things that are sometimes crowded out by all the stuff going on in our lives and all the other people. Get away from them all. You've been carrying a lot of other people's energy for quite some time. The home retreat or the getting away from it all is a way to clear your own emotional and psychic space as well, as you potentially are kind of crowded by other people's energy. Your own spiritual life is a great way to get on top of that. I've used the phrase a retreat at home, but whatever it may be, whether it's your meditation practice, whether it's working with nature or anything like that, you also need to connect to the invisible, the spiritual, the greater, and pick yourself out. You're feeling pulled, dragged into the kind of gunk of the world. That's how to get yourself out. Time alone, spiritual time. Pisces, with your birthday coming up, this is an ideal opportunity to set some ideas for a rather different year for yourself. Things seem to be moving quite well, and especially after your birthday will be. Remember, in the weeks leading up to our birthdays, many things just feel a little bit flat. So that aside, once the birthday rocks around, you'll find things really going smoothly, and if you think about it, things have gone quite well for you. Well, you need to take advantage of that process by setting up some different destinations for yourself. From literally times you go on holiday to places you haven't been on holiday before, to things like people, maybe some friendships or engaging with people that you haven't seen for a long time, or people that you don't normally think of as your friends or anything like that. And most important, destinations in your life. The experiences of the last couple of months have probably taught you that you view your own life too narrowly and you're stuck in old habits and old patterns. This birthday, the New Year's resolution to write for yourself is that you can change all that, and you will. Right now, a small investment in setting up new ideas for yourself is really going to go a long way. You'll quickly see that it's possible and that your ideas are supported. You just need to be willing to let go of old habits, and like that, a whole new path arrives for you, Pisces. Always worth remembering, the purpose of astrology is to teach us to maximize our potentials and to deal with the factors that we cannot change. So many people feel powerless in the face of what politics and government and the world is doing. But you have your own life, your own values, and your own path in your own hands. Maximize it, and I'll see you here next week at the same time.